Welcome, 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 everyone. Really nice to see you all. Nice to be here with you. I'm Eve, and I'm the teacher here on Wednesday nights at the San Francisco Dharma Collective. And you are the San Francisco Dharma Collective, so thanks for having me. It's an entirely volunteer-run organization here. So literally, we are resting upon the generosity of many, many beings who make this place happen every single week. And as a community-run organization, it's also just a beautiful place for us to really rejoice in what we've co-created. And even if it's your first night here, you are showing your generosity and showing up here and co-creating this space. And every single person who comes, your presence really, truly matters. And not in like a cheesy, ethereal way. It really, really matters. Last week, we had a beautiful discussion about the relevance of practice when the world is so clearly and blatantly and ever more so on fire. What are we doing here? And one of the things I was thinking about after that beautiful discussion was there's really, there's no such thing as individual well-being, even though in certain times in my life I've been a well-being professional and tried to help individual well-being. It's so clear that our well-being is collective, and not just because we depend upon each other, but because we can literally feel what is happening in the world. Like we experience the insanity and the craziness of this world. Part of the reason maybe some of you are here tonight is the refuge possible to come here. So then each of us who's here, we are contributing to not that. We are contributing to being a little bit more sane, generous, and kind. And that actually really, really matters. Because even if we aren't out there doing the, horrible things in the world, even if we aren't out there kind of fomenting anger and further isolation and, sowing the seeds of so much pain, if it is living in us, it's impairing our ability to be with it and to meet it and to counter it. So I just feel so grateful for everybody showing up here and the relevance of you showing up here. And this evening, we will continue with this beautiful book, Open Heart, Open Mind, Tsoknyi Rinpoche. Again, if it's your first night here, no problem. The book is beautifully circular. And it's not even that it's circular, bless you. It's also that the teachings and the path of Buddhism, which we look at here and study here together, it is like literally landing upon itself over and over. Like sometimes I think of it as this shelter or this refuge, but it also it's really like a weave, like a beautifully woven carpet, for example. And here it's only one color. But when you see a beautiful carpet and there's all the colors and all the patterns, and it's, the way that these teachings meet us, whether it's focusing on the breath or focusing on compassion, whether it's kind of taking a look at the ways that we over-identify with trying to be really good or try to avoid feeling like we're really bad. Like all these different strands of the teachings create this weave, and the weave is very trustworthy and reliable. So it creates a place for us to rest. So the practice really does offer this sense of I can let my mind and heart rest here. It rises up for us. And this week, what we're going to be focusing on actually for the next 2 weeks are these aspects of really, I laugh because it's really hard stuff, really getting to know the contents of our mind. Yeah, isn't it great that there isn't quite yet technology that broadcasts what's in our mind? And you're just we're good, let's not make that technology, because the contents of our own mind, as Shantideva would say, it's like there's no more powerful force in the world, no army that's more brutal and vicious than the ways that we can kind of be critical towards ourselves. Or even the embarrassing stuff of like, here I am talking and you're like, should I have gotten the carne asada? I mean, I know that the pollo asada was good, right? Just the BS of our mind that's also cycling through. And so it's really important in our practice to start having a healthy and loving relationship to the contents of our mind. And the majority of people who I meet and start talking to about meditation, they're like, yeah, I can't meditate. And I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean? You know, it's not actually that like hard. Technically, it's not like I can't bench press. Like that's hard. I get it. And usually it's like, I don't want to be with that stuff in my mind. Like I really don't want to be with that stuff in my mind. And that's fair. But it doesn't go away if we don't meditate. You notice that? It's still there. And in fact, meditation is such beautiful training of learning to like recognize and then not energize. Like recognize what's there and then not keep going with it. And so over the next 2 weeks, we'll kind of look at the contents of mind. And then that gives us an opportunity to look at, well, what's happening when we're not carried away by our fantasies and our delusions and our past grievances and our future craving? Like what is there? And that, you know, that is in some ways, I don't know if it's like the most thorough part of the weave or the most consistent pattern, but what we can find there is that real sense of clear, spacious openness that's not separate from loving, compassionate presence. So this clear, spacious openness, which again, if you're willing to kind of go with me for a moment, is the true nature of your mind. Clear space. But that's not like this vacant, I'm above and away from everything. Like it's this incredibly loving, spacious, open place. And that's, you know, again, all of these practices, like getting to the nitty-gritty of labeling and identifying what arises in the mind, which we'll do a little later, is such an essential part of getting to kind of push away the dust and kind of reveal that clear, open spaciousness. And one other thing I just want to highlight from our conversation last week is meditation, these practices, and especially the Buddhist psychology or worldview, the way that we understand the mind through the lens of Buddhist practice, it really is a refuge. It really does create a sense of ease. But it also is like this clear, God, why did lightsaber come to mind? But I'll go with it. It's this incredibly powerful mythic force, right? It cuts through. Like doing this work, it's not just, oh, I can create this place of refuge where I'm okay and I can be more okay. It's like, I am doing this work so I can really see what needs to get done and like cut through any and every obstacle in the way. Like it has both of those. And that's, you know, the spiritual warriorship. So since I don't know some of you here, I hope you know that that's what we're here for. Welcome. Glad to have you here for it. And we'll start with a bit of a shorter practice just to settle in, and then I'll unpack a bit more of this practice of the third foundation of mindfulness, or mindfulness of mind. And we'll do some discussion together and practice with that. Since there are some new folks here tonight, my invitation for you is to, and for everyone, to just look around the room, get a sense of the space that you're in, the other beings here, your Sangha for this evening, and then look at Mace at the door. Hey! She's there to be our fierce, compassionate protector. Sometimes we get blessed with like awesome banging beats during our meditation. Here, no problem. It's okay. And again, we have this safety and protection at the door. And while it is a full room, And maybe your ideal would be kind of practicing in silence when someone isn't sniffling or coughing or moving. It's all the practice. So really, just I will keep you cueing in that way. So to settle in, let's give ourselves a moment to release and relax through the chest and the shoulders. So inhaling your shoulders up to your ears, exhaling down the back. Yeah, twice more, inhaling up, exhaling back. And one more time. And from here, invite this posture of openness through the chest, almost a slight uprightness of the heart. As though the heart were aiming or facing towards the dark night sky. And then softening through the brow and the eyes. And now really softening through the brow and the eyes. And softening through the heart. And landing in the belly, inviting a sense of grounded presence as we bring attention and awareness to our breath at the belly. In this first part of practice, bringing our mindfulness to the body and breath, we don't have to imagine the breath or think about the breath. We experience the breath as it is breathing us. And if the belly doesn't feel like the right place to focus, you can notice breath at the nostrils or just throughout the body. Otherwise, really deepen this sense of grounded presence as we attend to the rise and fall of breath at the belly. And thoughts, memories, images arise, no problem. Very gently releasing that energy and then returning with this full force of our attention and awareness to grounding at the belly. Like the base of the mountain, like the earth itself, feeling that grounded stability. And gently, with this more stable base, can we find our way to the heart center, touching here whatever spark there is of kindness or care, compassion or bodhicitta, this heart's natural longing to be at ease and free, and this heart's natural longing that all of us can have that sense of freedom and ease. Feel that from the front of the heart and the back of the heart, and radiating as a simple presence of the heart. Nothing contrived or created, just revealing that heart essence. And if there's some ache or some heaviness, some emotional residue at the heart, no problem. Include that in that sense of care, kindness. Feeling this very body as a body of compassion. Reconnecting to the grounded stability at the belly, that natural blossoming of the heart open. And now feel, sense, or imagine a clarity at the head centers. Not just ease and warmth, but brightness, vividness, clarity. Almost as though we are leaning back in the mind. Of course, there are thoughts, memories, and images, distractions of all kinds. No problem. For just a bit longer, keep coming back to this grounded, open, clear. Thank you for your practice. Little appetizer practice for us all there. Help us get settled. So part of what we get to do here on Wednesday evenings and most evenings is not only practice the meditations together, but also be in community, be in discussion together. And sometimes that can be a little tricky. It's one thing to meditate, which is its own kind of tricky, right? All of the incredible proliferation of thoughts, memories, images, fantasies, ideas. And then as we are engaging with one another in reflection, there's another kind of challenge. And that's a relational edge, right? How can we show up in a community that is different tonight than it has been any other night, with a kind of integrity and compassion that allows as many people here as possible to feel at ease and supported, connected. It means that in how we are listening and how we are speaking, we're engaging our practice, we're engaging our compassion. So when I will ask questions or reflections from folks, when you're speaking, really being considerate of the room and everyone here and the various states of disarray of nervous systems in this room, right? And what might be hard to hear for some, and just being compassionate with that. And then, as we're listening, can we listen with that sacred vision, that clear seeing that all of us here are already perfect and we're like works in progress. So really seeing each other with this beautiful benevolence, this like heartfelt compassion. I mean, it would be so awesome if we could see everyone like that all the time, even when we're so mad at them. But we can try it here with mostly strangers, right? Maybe a couple people you know, or maybe more. So that's the way that we really have to engage together in this place for us to have meaningful conversation and reflection. And without it, it's not going to work. I'm sorry. None of this awakening stuff is going to work. Like, we really have to engage in reflection. We have to hear each other. We have to think ourselves. Like, it's absolutely necessary. Otherwise, we all would have read this book and got enlightened right on the spot. And, sure, certainly didn't happen to me, even third time through. We really need to work this material. So before we kind of begin in discussion, does that sound good to everybody? Can I get a yes, even like a virtual high five? Yeah, all right, great. So that was a little bit of a preliminary practice, but also maybe for folks who aren't as familiar, if there's any questions about that practice, happy to hear those, or any reflections on that practice. Was it really hard? Sometimes a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. My heart was racing the entire time.
Okay. Can I hear more? Do you mind? Oh, sorry. This is just so people online can hear. It doesn't amplify.
Hi.
Hey.
I'm Alec.
Hi, Alec.
Yeah, my heart was racing the entire time.
Okay. Do you have any sense or hit why?
External factors outside of here.
Outside of here, right.
Yeah.
So then coming inward, those become bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And how did you meet that, or what happened?
What do you mean?
Like, as the heart's racing, did it stay racing, or did it settle, or kind of what?
No, it just stayed racing.
Stood
I tried to like calm it down a little bit by just breathing slower and deeper, but it wasn't working. In complete transparency. So I just went with it.
And then when you opened your eyes and we were done, was there like, whew?
No, I was just in the daze. I straight up couldn't move until I told myself I had to move.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really bizarre. I don't know.
Yeah. And is meditation common for you, or something you do?
In the city I lived prior to this, it was.
Yeah.
I've been so busy since I've been here. So I've honestly fell out of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
Yeah. And I think, there's so many different reasons why when we close our eyes to practice, it might actually make things feel worse. And I've joked before that we should put like a warning label on meditation, like you will become more aware that your mind is like a garbage dump, or right, all this other stuff you haven't dealt with is there, or like it's not always comfortable, right? And the promise, or sometimes even the payoff, is that we do start to develop that intimacy with whatever's here. And as you said, I mean, you knew it clearly, you already understand that it's actually not about what's here. Because sometimes when we close our eyes in practice, it's also, especially if we're not as familiar practicing in groups, like it's like, who are all these people? Like that can really elevate for a while our sense of kind of over arousal. But it's, I know this sounds very much like a classic teaching of a kindergarten teacher, but there really is no bad practice, because all of it is that familiarization. And, as long as we're kind of able to be aware of what's happening and then get lost and then be aware of what's happening, often we end up finding insights about it even like days or months or years later. So, thank you for sharing. Anybody else? Oh, hey. Oh, no, you're just grabbing. Okay, no side comment on the way. Any other, was that a, yes, can we? Yes. I love these brave people speaking up. Thank you.
Something I really enjoyed was the languaging of like catching a thought that you didn't like and no problem. Like your heart's not feeling open, no problem.
Yeah.
And I've found that in the past I've really tried to like force gratitude at the thing, try to like force compassion and make love at the things I was not wanting in my head. And no problem was a lot easier to just like, okay. Great. I don't have to love it, but it's cool that it's there.
Yes. No beautiful.
I love that.
I'm so glad. And what's your name?
Ryan.
Ryan. Nice to see you. Yeah, I think, and that's a very Dzogchen framing. So, this book is in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, Nyingma tradition, Dzogchen tradition, and in that approach, really, everything is workable is one of the common ways it's translated. There's no problem. And even those thoughts, that are hard may end up becoming something quite useful. But I love what you highlight, which is when we try to like preemptively cover something in compassion that we're actually not ready to. And it's like this like battle, and it makes us even more tense. And you're like, this is not working. It's like the opposite effect. And while it's wonderful to have and hold that intention and aspiration of meeting everything with kindness and openness, like we kind of can't always go there directly. We might need a little like warm up, like, okay, let me get into it. Let me feel enough at ease that then the heart can open. And that's why I really love we come down, but then we find that stable base before we try to open the heart. Sometimes we just go directly like, okay, let me open the heart. And then sometimes, again, not always, but then once we feel stable and that kind of sense of warmth at the heart, the mind just is clear. We're not even like, let me clear up the mind. And again, this is a little bit of suspension of disbelief, but it's also like, let's try it out. Like, is that way that I feel, stable, loving, open, is that actually just me? Is that a natural state? Is it an investigation we get to make? Nick, you look like you have a comment on that. Oh, right behind you. Yeah.
Well, actually, I just was thinking, it was really interesting. Thank you for sharing your experience, Alec. And I guess part of the question I had was that when it does seem to amplify the experience when you turn inward, is it ever the case that actually someone would be ill-advised to sit and be mindful? Maybe they're experiencing something so intense that actually you don't want to do that. You want to sort of keep your distance from.
1,000,000%. And we've had such great resource to come up with trauma-informed mindfulness in the last 10 years or so. And often some of the simple instructions are to kind of look around, right? If it gets too intense, sometimes it is focused on the belly, but the belly isn't the great place for everyone. They have other pain or psychological associations there. But the looking around and like even looking at different places, counting things, and just straight up not practicing, right? Like I this may be a personal thing, but I don't know if it's a good thing to go on retreat right after you break up with someone. Like, truly, and I'm like all for it. Like, someone you love dies, go on retreat. But break up with someone, like, oh no. There's like certain, I guess that some of that's individual, like, but when we close our eyes and there's raw material, it can really like, and so we want to be very gentle. And I think when we're in that acuity, sometimes the journaling is the contemplative practice that's the best. So meditation is one contemplative form, but sometimes the journaling, it still kind of has that stillness, and it's much more like an inquiry practice then, as opposed to a stillness. Yeah. Yes. Is there one last comment? And it's Charlie, right? Yeah. Yep. Oh. Okay.
Yeah, I'm Charlie. When we were practicing, I was very aware. I was aware of like the oxygen level in my blood kind of going up and down as I breathed, and it was kind of like a little rush. And I wasn't really aware of that before. And it just, and my body movement as I breathe. And it just made me think of how that's life. It's constant motion, it's constant change. And I have the capacity to be steady on that, to be with it. Like a tree rooted and in the wind, it's still rooted. Or the waves, that they keep going back to the ocean.
Yeah.
Or the wind on a mountain.
Yeah.
It's like grounded, but also in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And I love you pointing that out, because again, our practice isn't just following what I say or following the instructions. It's so that then gives us an opportunity to directly know it, right? To directly know, wow, there's a grounded place that is also flexible. And that's much different than me saying, you're grounded and flexible, right? Like, to feel it is so, like, that is one of the things we were really like looking for. So thanks. Yes.
Hi, I'm Marlena. One reflection, one separate question. A little bit following up to Ryan's point, right? On no problem. I was very distracted by random thoughts and was kind of judging myself. Then the no problem actually helped me with that. And then all of a sudden, I had this very intense thought about something else related to a lot of grief. But then the open-heartedness and kindness was helpful to actually let those feelings flow through me without judgment. That was really beautiful. And then I really opened up to the rest of the meditation. I was struggling a little bit when you said, focus on your mind now, your clear mind. The hard part was quite easy for me, but the mind, I was like, I don't know what to visualize.
Good.
And I usually do a lot of chakra stuff. So I'm like, is this chakra 6, intuition, third eye? No, it's the mind, should be clear.
Oh gosh.
So that was actually very confusing for me.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear a little bit more about that.
That's what our whole night's about. So you're on the right track. And I love, I can kind of feel, like we spoke about last time, like that bhakti quality, that we can, in our practice, focusing on the heart for even that moment is a little tonglen, right? It is a little like, I'm going to be with this natural heartfelt care for whatever's here, but we're not making it like a real big deal. We're not like, okay, I'm now going to do a formal practice. We're just like, I'm already care about what's here and whatever arises. And I do think that when either something emerges in practice, right, a thought of grief or loss or hurt, or we're coming into practice with loss and grief and hurt, it's very hard to settle in if we don't have that kind of kindness and that gentleness. So it's very potent, and chanting, of course, would really get us right in there, and then visualizing that openness of the heart. So I'll shift a little into that question of kind of what is this mind? Oh boy. Whenever I talk about these things, I'm like, oh man, wow, we are going to get into some tricky territory here. I think it is like a little bit of a fool's errand to try to talk about consciousness, but it's very important because like we are conscious and there is a mind and it's full of all sorts of garbage that we get so attached to that we forget that there's freedom, right? Like in some ways the purpose of time out consciousness, it's not just noodling around and kind of getting, very abstract. It's really actually getting quite precise and quite clear on like, what do we mean by mind? What do we mean by attention? What do we mean by awareness? And the way that we start here in this, and I know there's some folks online who are keeping up on where we are in the book. So we are at chapter 10, page 167, if anyone is looking. And the opening he says here is, for most of us, thoughts seem very solid and very true. We become attached to them or afraid of them. Either way, we give them power over us. The more solid and true we believe them to be, the more power we give them. So this third foundation of mindfulness, mindfulness of thoughts or the mind, is the practice of noticing the names and labels we attach to our experience. How often do we tell ourselves, I'm ugly, I'm tired, I'm a loser, this person I work with is a total jerk? And so he goes on to say that like when he himself was a young monk, he started attributing himself to one of those labels or one of those terms, which was saying that he was sick. So when he was a young monk, a teenager, he had actually anxiety disorder, right? Which is not uncommon, especially for youth today, but for all of us, right? And this anxiety, he then started identifying with like, there's something wrong with me, I'm sick. He didn't know at the time that it was anxiety. He just thought, I'm sick. So these little thoughts of like, I'm bad at math. That's one that I definitely think is true, not just a thought for me. But we can like really like create a story. Like I'm not a very I'm not a clean person. I'm not a reliable person. Like these little thoughts, they actually have like quite a lot of power over us. And one of the benefits of this practice of mindfulness of the mind is starting to really catch on, especially to those like repeat, recycled old news kind of thoughts that cycle through all the time for us. And when we start to notice, the thoughts, I love that he talks about them as, it's funny because this book isn't that old. I think it's maybe, is it 10 years, 2012? But because our media world has changed so much, most of us don't really like watch the news in the same way we did 10 or 12 years ago. But throwback, do you remember watching the news and there was like a little thing at the bottom, like that little, yeah. So that's his analogy. Does that even exist anymore? It does. Okay, I just don't watch it. Okay. So he calls it the crawler. And he says a lot of our mind is like we're trying to do something else, like watch the news, but there's like all these breaking headlines at the bottom. And we just get like thwarted back and forth. And when we first start this practice of paying attention to or bringing mindfulness to the mind, we end up having just so many thoughts. Like it feels very overwhelming. There's so much speed. He said, the speed with which thoughts appear and disappear across the screens of our mind are like out of control breaking news updates. We can hardly read one before another takes its place, and another and another. Our awareness is overwhelmed by fleeting impressions, half-grasped notions, bits of sentences, ideas that have only begun to form before they disappear. Typically, we find ourselves trapped in a cycle of trying to keep up with the news. And so we're going to do this practice together of trying to kind of turn our attention and awareness towards what is going on this, news feed. And that really, it can feel quite overwhelming. Like there's so many things. I like the analogy a bit more of like shooting stars. If you get to see a meteor shower, like, oh my God, like there's just so many. But it's really, I think, quite compelling to start noticing the quality of thoughts, because some of them indeed have that really rapid quality. Some of them feel, it's almost like the homemade fireworks display, where it's like, there's one that's like really big, and then there's one that's like, meh, and then one that actually goes off at your feet or whatever it is. Like, all the quality of thoughts are different. Some of them are like so compelling. Some of them are kind of like sludgy and slow. And so to bring this kind of real curiosity to this whole phenomena of thoughts and like create this like, interest, not to energize them and run away with them, but like, that thought about when I'm going to go to the grocery store is way slower than that thought about like, what recently happened to what celebrity family drama, right? Like that might have a whole different quality. Like there's different types of thoughts that are emerging from this incredible, amazing space of the mind. And so the first aspect is really starting to slow down enough to notice and to note them. In our small group practice, we've been doing noting practice again, and people definitely can struggle with noting or labeling. It's far more common, this noting or labeling practice, in the Theravadan tradition. So some of you may have done this, especially in the Mahasi Sayadaw tradition taught by Goenka. And so these practices are, you're sitting there and really like your focus is the breath, and then whatever arises, you note it, and then you note it, and then you note, and like, 12 hours a day. And even if, like, you're like pain, searing pain, you're just note, you do move around, you do get food and all other things, but there's a little bit of this like, you're like, I'm going to get those thoughts. There's an energy like, I'm going to get them, I'm going to label them, I'm going to get through them. And I think it's good to have some of that tenacity so that we don't just get like, like thrown side to side by our thoughts, like our attention getting whipped around. But there's also a way to kind of look at this labeling practice as, a little bit of, I'm not sure if it's quite related to what Charlie said, but to notice what is a thought and what is actually experience. What am I experiencing in this body at a sensorial level? And then what's a thought that's taking me away from that? And knowing the difference. So we're developing just incredible meta-awareness. And meta-awareness, as I often say, is like our most coveted skill to develop, because it gives us the opportunity for choice. Choosing how we respond. Choosing how we like let the world kind of meet us or influence us. So when we become aware that a thought is arising, we can have some possibility, out in the world of how we want to work with that thought, especially if it's like a self-critical thought or a judgment thought towards another. But if that thought arises and we're with the thought, like completely what's called cognitively fused with it, there's no space. We're just out there judging, right? Ourselves and others. So this practice allows us to see that these thoughts, in some ways they're ours, but they're also just kind of happening. And to get a little like, as Tsoknyi would say, like unglued from these thoughts as our thoughts. Like, okay, I'm a host for these thoughts coming through, so they're kind of mine, but what are they? And then that distance from them allows that possibility of choice over time. And the other, the cool thing, especially in the Mahasi Sayadaw tradition, is when you note that intently for that long, right? You're doing it hour after hour, day after day. You really start to catch on, like, these thoughts are like, they're not really a big deal. Like, they're like an inflated nothing, and they just go. Like, they come, just all like exciting, and then they go. Okay. So you get to see the impermanence of mental events. So just by paying attention, just by noting, you start to recognize, and this is more like Charlie's experience, that direct experience. Thoughts are actually not the entirety of me, let alone my consciousness. They just come and go. And I can tell you that, and you can kind of think that, but that's different than, oh, I know that my thoughts will come and go. That's freedom. Like, that's freedom, right? The most intense feelings of distress and overwhelm at the psychological level is when we don't recognize that our thoughts will change, that everything will change. So just that over and over again, familiarization, remembering, recognizing, oh, these are changing, these are moving. That's such a powerful insight that we can get through noting. And then, much more in the Mahamudra and Dzogchen traditions, we use the labeling, and this is what we'll do more next week, meaning we label the thoughts in order to start paying attention more and more to the gaps between the thoughts. So that's Marlena's question, right? Like, what is that we're leaning back into when we lean back into the mind? And spoiler alert, it's, clear, spacious, open awareness, sometimes described as clear light awareness, not because a light comes on, but because it has a quality that it's like transparent, like a crystal, right? And crystals almost are luminous. They're not, everything that comes through, they refract. And similarly, like any content that comes through our awareness, whether it's through our sense portals or thought, that's our sixth sense portal of mind, comes right through. And so when we can notice the gaps between thoughts, it's like we get to see, like in between old film. Actually, I think they still use film in the movie theaters, and like in between the frames, like that, we're kind of looking in between the frames. And in that, there's this, again, luminous, peaceful wakefulness. And I know many of you in this room have experienced that occasionally. And it's not always in meditation, not only in psychedelics, right? It's also just like in life, right? When I had such a beautiful, end of my walk here today, when I was like, nothing's like really wrong. Nothing's really great. But there was such a peace and a clarity, and I wasn't in a rush. Just these simple moments where I'm not Eve walking somewhere. There's like a simple, grounded being. And again, that being that state is not temporary. Like, that's actually, if we're willing to investigate it, possibly what's always already here, that state. And we just need to find all these different ways in, all these different exercises to kind of more and more feel it and experience it. So with the noting practice, we're really like shifting. First, we're identifying what is the contents of mind, and then we start to shift to awareness as opposed. So we start foreground thoughts, background awareness, and then we switch it. Background awareness, background thoughts, foreground awareness. And we'll do a little bit of that today and more tomorrow. More next week. And the practice tonight, I think I want to take it easy on us because noting can get kind of busy. So we'll just try for a moment without any instruction. You don't even need to close your eyes, but I'm going to let you think whatever you want to think. Okay, and then popcorn style, what kinds of thoughts are arising? Memory, planning, tired, pain, fantasy, abstract, worry, storytelling, thinking about thinking, therapeutic balm, food, longing, fear, anger, confusion, comparison. Okay, you guys got this. Very impressed. So just a couple notes on noting is the practice isn't to learn how to note well. The practice is to identify thoughts well. But we can also, I think it's really good to do thoughts and then sensory experience. So, that includes, of course, like someone already said, pain, but that could be like aching, throbbing, heavy. That could be even with eyes closed, some play of light. That could be the sounds, like hearing. So that simple note, and then we just let it go. We're going to anchor back at the belly when we start. And then whatever arises, we note it, and then we come right back to the belly. Whatever arises, we come right back to the, and it could feel, again, like that meteor shower, no problem. It could feel like, sometimes when we turn our attention towards the mind, it's like, uh-oh, wait, no. And like, all of a sudden, no thoughts come for a minute. That's also fine. They will come back. And sometimes we'll get completely carried away with the thought. Okay, and then we just come back. So we're going to try this practice together just for about 15 minutes. And then I will give us a couple cues of the kinds of notes. But you were all doing great. So I wouldn't go to the like, I am thinking about yesterday when I didn't show up to my friend's thing on time. No, like remembering. So our biggest buckets can be remembering or past, future or planning. That about covers it, right? Remembering or past, future or planning. Fantasy, which someone said, it's great fantasy, like, just kind of images or things that are not, supposedly real. And then the sensory experiences. So does that, and I'll cue us again. It can get busy, but this is just an experiment. Erica, did you have a question?
Well, it was more about, like, we're not looking for thoughts.
Yes.
Because, like, when you were doing the pop-up, there was nothing, So just
Not looking.
whatever.
Exactly. And you don't want to chase after them. It's almost like you're following. And sometimes, like, they're going to be so quick, you will even miss it, no problem. So again, like that, being curious, like, how will these thoughts come? Will they be that, like, professional looking fireworks display, or will they be that backyard, explosion? Like, just having some humor with it, because it's interesting. It's kind of wild. If it becomes overwhelming, no problem. Focus on the belly and the breath. Just come back to the belly and the breath. Does that sound clear enough? Clear enough? Okay. Okay, let's give it a try. So if you need to, do a little stretch. I'm going to one side body, but be careful of your neighbor. The other side. And then it can be really nice to do a little circle around the sacrum. And if you feel on the sleepy side, it can be really nice to have the eyes slightly open, though I have a feeling focusing on thoughts will keep most people awake. But if you want, you're welcome to have your eyes slightly open. And let's begin by bringing attention and awareness to the belly once again. So beautifully, I hear people already lengthening and deepening their breath. So you can extend that inhale, coming all the way down to the belly, maybe even slightly inflating the belly. Gentle exhale, lengthening, almost bringing the belly back towards the spine. A couple more of these, in some ways, exaggerated, lengthened inhales and exhales. And finding then the natural rhythm of your breath, but that anchor, that focus at the belly. And whatever arises, we give it a simple note, like hearing when the sound of the bell is coming from the church next door, or a thought arises about something later, future or planning. Back to the belly and the breath. Trying to maintain a real pliancy, a deep existential relaxation, even as we are observing and noting the contents of mind. And if you get totally hijacked and carried away by a thought, no problem. Noting it, releasing it, coming back to the belly and breath, and starting again. Again, no problem if it just feels like there is one thought after another, no problem. Doing your best and seeing if possible, if you can maintain that deeper sense of grounded stability, even as we are labeling and noticing all these thoughts. And if there is a space between the thoughts, just rest. Whenever you can, coming back to the belly, and finding a refreshment for a couple cycles of breath, bringing all the attention and awareness to the belly, breathing in, and sustaining that attention and awareness to the belly, breathing out. Some of the thoughts are easier to let go. Some of them we hold closer. No problem. Simple, simple label, and then come back just a bit longer. If it feels stable and comfortable, stay with the anchor at the belly, meaning stay focused on the belly until a thought, memory, image, or fantasy arises. Otherwise, we can try to have our anchor actually as the space of mind itself, from which these thoughts arise and where they then pass on back to. And with the anchor in the space of the mind, we may not know where to look. So noticing when the next thought arises, where it arises from, where it returns to, and keeping the mind right there. Keeping our attention right there in the space of mind. Release the noting. Bring all attention and awareness to the body, to the breath. Breathing in, feeling and sensing and experiencing the entire body, breathing in. And breathing out, feeling and sensing and experiencing with all of our attention and awareness, the body breathing out. Thank you for your brave practice into your mind. Good work. Questions, reflections? Some of us have been doing this practice now for like a couple weeks. Be curious how that was for you all. Yes, would you mind handing the mic back that way?
Hi, I'm Tricia.
Hi, Tricia.
I often find in the evening that I'm sleepy after
Yeah.
the day and after dinner, and I have a hard time, and especially I notice, focusing on the breath in the belly. I kept yawning at first, yawning. It was almost like releasing this tension of, can I do it? Can I do it? And then and I kept noting as best I could. And then, but I just kept one after the other, or feelings or sounds, a lot of sounds. And it was when you said to go up to the mind and just be with whatever's there and the in between spaces, it was really interesting transition. My brain got a lot more awake, sharp, and I noticed I was like grasping for something when there was nothing like the sounds. But then I was like also just noticing, okay, I can hang out in the mind and I don't hate it.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was quite a transformation for me. I've struggled. I've been meditating for over 30 years off and on, but I've given it big breaks because I just get to where I'm like, I can't stand that. I can't control my mind and stop controlling my breath.
Yes.
When I focus on that, like I just can't do it right.
Yes.
So I'll give it, especially when I start really getting hard on my mind, then I've had to give it up. Kind of like what somebody was saying about, needing to just not meditate.
Yeah.
But tonight was really interesting to see that transition. Like, oh, my mind can be bright when I go there and just be with it.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm so glad, and I'm so glad that you return, right, to the practice, because it's not as though, like, it's very normal. I think everyone, has a wending way with the practice, and it's not as though if you leave, like, you've lost everything, right? So then you get to return to what you've already, been given to. And it is interesting, that natural luminosity of mind. When we touch it, it's like we thought we were tired, we thought we were confused, or like I had a headache, and I'm like, oh, nope, I just feel great. I might not even sleep tonight. Like, I have a little trickiness that when I reach that wakefulness, it really will keep me wakeful. But it's not totally unpleasant, but very beautiful to find that kind of wakeful brightness of the mind. And I'm just so touched by, like I really hear you and feel you on how hard it is to be with the mind. So, thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, I know we've been working with this for a little bit, but tonight was a bit of an unlock. And there were a few different things, but the big one was when you said to notice where the thought appeared from and where it went. That's something really clicked for me. I'd been noticing before you said that I was starting to differentiate between experience as you guided and thought, which felt like words, then images, which felt like not words, not really thought, maybe somewhere between experience and thought.
Yep.
Anyway, as I was overthinking that, you said that, and what I realized was that labeling the thoughts, there was a kind of, like an inception. It's like, in your dreams, you don't know how you got there. And I was noticing that every single thought I had, it was almost like getting away like a wet fish before I could notice it. But after that instruction, it felt a bit like, instead of just like, I'm looking for a rabbit in the forest, I'm just frantically, where's the rabbit?
Yeah.
Just seeing, oh, there's a burrow. I'm just going to look at that for a while.
Yes.
And it was incredibly settling. Didn't see a lot of burrows, but I saw a couple. And it was, in a way, it's kind of, I feel like it was the first time that I kind of was able to do the practice in that sense. So
glad. Yeah. And, knowing your mind a bit, like
my condolences.
It is very active, and that it like was able to resonate with that instruction, and it's an Alan Wallace instruction. I can't remember if it's Longchenpa or I don't remember. I'll have to look up because it's a traditional translation from a Tibetan text, the like noticing from which it arose and from which it goes back to. So glad that resonated. Yeah. Thanks. I saw in the front here.
My most challenging thought was about feeling claustrophobic, and that felt really interesting because it was both like an experience and a thought that I could label.
Yes.
And it was really interesting allowing for that experience. And then it was really beautiful how I think because we had worked with the heart a little bit in the beginning, I was feeling a lot of like thought about compassion, and that was really beautifully kind of coming up and kind of bringing in more of that softness into some of these more challenging thoughts. And I really appreciated how, as you were leading us into the experience, I felt like my mind was settling more and more and more, and there were kind of more challenging levels of thoughts coming up to the point of like, am I worthy of this experience? And there was this immediate, I love that my mind framed it as a question, which I think immediately was really trying not to overthink it, but it sort of allowed to soften of, oh, like here's that compassion again, and sort of like, okay, now it's gone.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for that description too. And I think indeed, right, there are, I don't know what it looks like, but I know what it feels like, which there are like these different layers or levels at which we're allowing ourselves to have the thoughts. Or there's like our very surface level channels, which is mostly, at least for me, planning, and then some more planning. And then you get below that, and maybe there's a bit more like self-criticism and judgment, and then below that, and it's like there's these like, it's almost like strata. And when we can, as you said, kind of fall beneath, oh, hi, you're so cute. And when we fall beneath those certain levels, and I just want to clarify, because from what I heard you say, opening the compassion, it's not as though the compassion were a thought, it was the host, right? Since compassion was there, it wasn't, oh, that, like I feel, self-criticism or some negativity, I should feel compassion. It's more, because compassion was there, it was immediately held in compassion. So thank you so much. Yeah. Yes, AJ, and then Ulysses.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Eve. Noting is not like one of my go-to practices, and it's been a while since I have done it. But I had a really great experience actually in like the very beginning portion of that awareness that the consciousness that is aware of our thoughts is not the thoughts itself, that it is like a separate consciousness that is observing that and that can see that and note that and name it. And yeah, it was really invigorating to experience that, because it's one of those things that we like talk about and know, and sometimes when you're like on deep retreat can kind of like get to that place, but it's harder to in everyday practice. So that was really exciting to be in that place. And then when you invited us to open up and kind of be in that space of consciousness and just kind of like allow the thoughts and sensations to come and go, it was easier to step into that space. But I don't know, this might get me excited about noting, so I might do more of that. I might really practice now after this.
It's awesome. And I'm curious, given, knowing your practice a bit, like, what is there a presence of? So you're saying there's the knowing, like, oh, wow, yeah, I recognize my consciousness isn't limited to the contents of thought. And then like coming out of practice, like, what is there presence of for you?
I think of that presence as like so hard to articulate, like that space of consciousness. And I feel like I think about it often in like metaphor more so. And for me, it's like, if you're like looking at like a lake or a pool of water and there's like reflections in it, it's like the lake that is holding that reflection. I don't know if that like makes sense, but that's what works with my brain.
Yeah. And there's something there that makes you want to do it again, right?
Yeah, because it's a very open and spacious and empty space. So when you can just kind of sit in that and not get kind of knocked around by the contents of your mind or sensations, like that is that freedom that you mentioned before. So.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
It's had a reflection that it's really interesting when the church bells went off. I realized that I've conditioned myself to count. And it was interesting because I sat there, I'm like, oh, I'm counting. And then I thought I was gonna stop, but then I just observed myself continuing to count. And I was like, oh, but it was like anchored in each bell, and so it just went away.
Yeah.
But I've never realized that I do that every time now. I just became aware of it, that I count. And so I was like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But it was overall really nice meditation. And in the end, you said something about, anchor, move the anchor from the stomach area and into the thoughts. And I couldn't do that, but even in the quietest moments, I can always hear the fan. And it was like a continuous anchor. So I anchored to that
sound. Beautiful.
And it just like, got me through the whole thing without hanging on to too many thoughts, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's really nice.
I mean, that subtle noticing, like, oh, wow, I count the, like, going up to 8 or whatever it is, like it's 8 o'clock. It's so, like, that is such a beautiful metaphor for so many of the ways that we are habitually, automatically thinking and not noticing, right? So you're noticing that one, but that clarity of it, it's like, wow, I never realized that immediately, I noticed this, like, so like, I don't love this, but I notice on the subway or on the metro, like I notice when I look at people and I'm assessing whether or not they have a happy or unhappy facial expression, I'm looking to see if they have a wedding ring on. And I don't even know what my, like, to go to with, like, but I was like, whoa, like, I do that. And, like, I've probably done that my whole life. I noticed that, like, 5 years ago. I was like, I'm always like, oh, but are they happy? Or, it's like, so it's like these, like, ways that we get onto ourselves. And it's not that we need to, like, all of a sudden police our every experience and our thoughts, but, like, there's a lot of those thoughts that are really unkind. That one's pretty just like whatever. And this one, the bell is like whatever. But just that level of what we don't recognize we do is humbling enough to get us interested to pay attention, And then I hope you can come next week, because I feel like we might get space of the mind, that we're going to go double into that. And I know that your practice like can open up there, so I feel like you'll really lean into it. No pressure. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thanks. I really resonated with what you guys said. I have pretty bad ADHD, so I always have a racing mind. And this time I had like pretty long moments or like stretches of time without any thoughts. And then I kind of felt like I was surfing and like, oh no, I'm going to fall soon. And you thought is going to come, and then it didn't come. So I guess my question is, how do you chill in those moments where there's no thoughts?
Yeah.
Instead of being like, oh, this is going to end because
Yeah.
no thought is going to come.
Yeah. What do you think? I'm curious. What was your intuition?
I mean, just try to lean into it and accept if a new thought comes, and then note and then start over again.
And in those spaces, was there, like what Tricia described, like a little brightness, or was it dullness, or what was that?
No, it was definitely bright.
Yeah.
But it was more like, oh, wow, like
Yeah.
there's nothing
Yes.
here.
Yes.
And I wasn't even talking to myself,
Yeah.
so there really was nothing. It was
Yep.
just that light, I guess,
Yeah.
that you explained.
And that's it's a tricky one. I know, Tom, we've talked about this before, like that space when it opens can also feel very, very confronting, like that there's no like ground. And like groundlessness sounds nice until you're experiencing it, and then you're like, where am I? And so the instruction, if it isn't feeling dull, if it feels bright, is like relax, which I know seems like such a blanket, but it generally is the right instruction for almost anything when the mind is not knowing what to do. If you're dull and you're relaxed, you fall asleep. But if there's brightness, to just relax. And that's what you were saying, lean in or lean back. Like I say lean back, because it kind of, for me, it's like that quality of like, oh, wow, like I see these stars, but there's galaxies behind, like, whoa. Like that, you're already lying down, but it's almost like you lean back more to take in the truth of like the vastness. Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. I'm also practicing handstands, and another thought was like, I could never get the balance, but sometimes I do it. I'm like, oh my God, it's working. So it's that same. So I'll
Yeah.
try to like go
Yeah.
back. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
The follow-up to what you were saying about if the sense is bright, you relax, but if it's dull, what's the instruction?
Then you want to come back to as much as you can with the brightness, usually through the inhale. So often like the inhale gives us that vividness. So if we're falling into dullness, either eyes a little bit open, or like moving to the front of the seat so that we're upright, or that inhale can give us the brightness. Wonderful reflections. Maybe one more. Uh-oh, you guys can duke it out. Okay, defer to Mackenzie. There we go. From the lounge chair.
This chair is ridiculous for trying to meditate in. I was like, how do you? Yeah. I brought this up before, like having like physical sensation that won't go away.
Yep.
So with this particular practice, like you just keep noting the same thing over and over for the whole time. It was sort of maddening.
Yep.
Is this the wrong practice for that, or is that a good thing?
We didn't practice long enough.
Okay. All right.
Truly, like it really, like it like, and this is a little again of that leap of faith, but like if you keep going, like it actually does subside. Especially given the nature of, how you've described it, that there's probably some, mind-body connection with it. So it's once the mind aspect of it settles, the body aspect of it will likely settle too.
All right. I'll trust you.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yep. So let's dedicate the merit of our practice here. So this is when we return to the very reason of coming here together. So connecting with the belly, stable, present, finding the heart, and staying right here at the heart. And that natural yearning of the heart to be free. And that natural yearning and even quivering of the heart that longs for all beings to be free. Bringing to mind anyone in your life who might need that extra energy and care. And then, of course, the multitudes of beings in this world who need our care and consideration. And letting that feel very present here in the heart for just a moment. And then almost like we're gathering up, like with all of our heart's energy, and gathering our hands together and placing them in front of the heart, if that feels comfortable. And we offer the energy of our time here together, of our practice, our reflection, everything we've gathered. And we imagine that we could extend this, radiate it out, that all beings everywhere could know love and belonging, that all beings everywhere could feel safe from inner and outer harms, that all beings everywhere could experience peace and freedom in their hearts and live in ease. So grateful to be here with you.